This afternoon, all public sector workers are to resume work after they called off their strike last night. The industrial action was called off after the leadership of organized labor reached an agreement with the government to pay their cost of living allowance at 15% of their base pay. Samuel Mbura has more in this report.
They came to the table with a demand of 20% of cost of living allowance. This, the unions believed, will cushion them against the harsh economic conditions. Some of them had already laid down their tools in protest of government's failure to meet their demand. But after days of stalled negotiations with government and the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, a 15% COLA has now been agreed by all parties to be paid to all public sector workers effective July 1, 2022. Here is Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress, Dr. Anthony Yaba, announcing the decision.
We are very, very pleased to announce that we have just agreed a COLA of 15%, and we now are going to ask all the workers who are on strike, especially in the education sector, to go back to work.
General Secretary of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, Thomas Musa, has since directed all teachers to return to the classroom.
So for and on behalf all the teacher unions in the pre-tertiary education, including the Ghana National Association of Teachers, the National Association of Graduate Teachers, we have the Teachers and Educational Workers Union, we have the Coalition of Concerned Teachers Ghana. We hereby direct and ask all our members and wish also to inform them that effective July 14th, today, 2022, in the year of our Lord, we have called off the strike that we embarked upon on the 4th of July.
Meanwhile, some labor unions who had given an ultimatum to strike over the COLA have now rescinded their decision. Bernard Ejay is the General Secretary of the Public Sector Workers Union.
We have not yet embarked on our action. Our action was set to begin on Tuesday, 19th of July. But once we've come to an agreement, we'll go back to our structures, and then once we find this acceptable, then we'll move on from there.
Minister for Employment and Labor Relations, Ignatius Bafwewa, expressed gratitude to labor unions for their cooperation.
But I also want to extend a hand of appreciation to organized labor. We began this with a spirit of cooperation, and we have ended with a spirit of cooperation. And one thing which was quite evident in all our discussions was that we all wanted to protect the integrity of our country. And I want to believe that we are going to achieve that by this feat that we have accomplished.
The negotiation from government side within 22 labor unions included Minister for Education, Dr. Yao Educhum, Minister for National Security, Albert Kandapa, Finance Minister Ken Oforiatta, with his deputy, Abina Osayasari, and Deputy Minister for Employment and Labor Relations, Bright Rekubrobe. Information Minister, Kojo Pon, was also in attendance. Samuel Mbura, Joy News.
Reacting to this on the AM show Friday, NAT President Isaac Owusu said majority of the members are satisfied with the outcome. According to him, although they expected 20%, 15% is not bad.
And we believe majority of our members are equally satisfied with the outcome. Right after the declaration yesterday, we were able to communicate them to our members. And the feedback, I can say that yes, even though we couldn't get 20% that we expected, but the 15% is not bad for us. Now various platforms, social media platforms, I have duly informed our members that effective yesterday we have called off the strike. But you know, today being Friday, and students have been in the house for almost 2 weeks, definitely you might not get the full house today. So we believe that by Monday, God willing, we will be at work in full force.
General Secretary of the TUC, Dr. Yao Boateng, also explained that they considered the 15% because of the current state of Ghana's economy.
20%. It was going to cost government over 5 billion Ghana. And the situation we have found ourselves in, we thought that we should come down a bit to allow government some space to spend on other social interventions. So we were not only thinking about ourselves as workers, but we were thinking about the whole country. So we came down a bit to allow some space, some fiscal space for government to do other social interventions. We have done this job for a very long time, and we have no doubt that our members will satisfy the 50%. Just finished on 50%. So I am very confident that we will get a very positive feedback from our members.
But you haven't heard anything from them as we speak?
Of course, people are making all kinds of points and so on. But the majority are saying that we've done a good job. I have received a number of text messages who are saying, but as I said, we finished only yesterday. So it takes time for us to get a very meaningful feedback from our members. The ones I'm talking about are TUC members. But we are here to hear from the other leaders what their members think. But as I said, we are very confident that our members will be happy with 50%. But the minister at the negotiation table requested for some time to plan a payment. So the minister will, in due course, engage with the leaders on the payment plan. So we are hoping that it will not take too long. And again, we needed to understand because the situation we are in is not a very normal.
Fair Wages and Salaries Commission says the Ministry of Finance will determine the schedule to be used in paying the agreed on percentage for the COLA. Elankwa speaks for the Commission.
The important thing is the parties have agreed to the fact that the effective date is 1st July. So whatever is owed to workers will be paid according to that timeline. But when it comes to the implementation, of course, the Ministry of Finance will have to go back to their books and look at the expenditures in front of them and determine the schedule that they are going to go by, whether it's going to be effective at the end of the month or whether it's going to be maybe a lump payment of 2 months on 2 monthly basis. And those details will be figured out and we will get to know about it later. Both parties agree that the Ministry of Finance will have to go back to the drawing board and find out what the payment schedule will be and they'll share that with us. And when that comes to us, I'll share that with you.
Let's now take you around the country and see some schools with the impacts of the strike that has been called off in the Upper West region. Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports at the WA Model Primary A, there's no pupil in school, though some teachers are there.
Well, I'm the head of the school, and as directed by our union leader yesterday that we should call off the strike. That is why I came as a head. I've opened, you see that my office is opened. I haven't entered my name in our attendance book. But as you can see, no child is on site. I don't know whether it was due to the late announcement for us to resume work. Maybe that might have also caused them maybe not to be able to come to school today. But hopefully we hope that maybe by Monday they might have heard that we've been asked to come back, so that they also come back so that academic work, classroom work will start.
Let's speak with Martina Bugri, who is in the northern region for us. Martina, what's the impact of the strike that has been called off on schools?
The schools are yet to return. I went to some of the schools. Just the Lamashego cluster of schools a while ago. The school is still locked. In some schools, the teachers came, but no student turned out. It looks like the reason they are giving me is probably because it was Friday and the announcement for them to return also didn't come early. And so most pupils are yet to report. But they believe that by Monday, they will be in full swing.
So at the school, there are no pupils and there are no teachers too? Is that what you're saying?
Some schools we have teachers, some schools we don't have any, the whole place is quiet, nobody is there. But in these schools that we have teachers, the pupils do not turn up.
Martina Bugri is a woman in the northern region. We're still monitoring and see what's the impact of teachers calling off their strike has on schools. On Thursday, Dr. Baumia told Ghanaians to brace themselves for tougher times, adding that the economic hardship many are experiencing could get worse before it gets better. He accused John Mahama administration of being partly responsible for Ghana's economic woes and the decision to return to the IMF. Maxwell Agbagba has more in this report.
Fiscal deficits are rising, debt levels are increasing. This is happening globally.
Dr. Baumia's appearance at the event was highly anticipated by many, particularly in the wake of the government's decision to go to the IMF. It was his first public comment on the move to seek the support from the fund. This was his reaction to public criticism of government's U-turn after the then opposition NPP disapproved of the NDC-led government's decision to seek the support of the IMF in 2015.
If you ask a carpenter to roof your house, and he roofs this house, and suddenly the roof collapses, without any rainfall or wind, suddenly you have a collapsing of the roof. Will you not blame the carpenter who did the roofing? Will you not blame the carpenter? But if the carpenter roofs your house, and the roof collapses because there's a tornado and a storm which has blown away roofs and windows and walls of many houses, will you blame the carpenter? Will you blame the carpenter?
The Vice President accused his predecessors of being partly responsible for Ghana's economic troubles and the decision to go to the fund.
Ghana has been hit with a quadruple whammy. A quadruple whammy. The energy sector excess capacity payments, banking sector cleanup, COVID-19, and the Russia-Ukraine war. We have been hit by this quadruple whammy. And I say again that if you take out the fiscal impact of this quadruple whammy, Ghana will not be going to the IMF for support, because our fiscal and debt and balance of payments outlook would be sustainable. Of the four factors, COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war were external, and the other two, the banking sector cleanup and the excess capacity payments, were the result of policies of the previous government.
He urged Ghanaians to brace themselves for tougher times, adding the current economic hardship many are experiencing could get worse.
While we hope for a quick end to the war, we must understand that things could get worse before they get better. We have to steel ourselves for that, because we just don't know when this war is going to end. The major lesson of the last 2 years is that we have to be more self-reliant. It is important that we take decisions that will inure to the benefit of the country, regardless of whether we are going to the IMF for a program or not. Regardless, we have to take the decisions that will help Ghana. The immediate task is to restore fiscal and debt sustainability. And these will be through revenue and expenditure measures and structural reforms. There's no way of going about that. We should also try and curtail non-concessional borrowing. That has to be curtailed.
This afternoon, the minority in Parliament are taking on Vice President Bawumia to the cleaners for blaming the NDC as part of blame for Ghana's current economic predicament. The Vice President listed 4 reasons that has pushed Ghana to the IMF, 2 being an external and other rest being policies of the Eswal Mahama administration. Speaking to journalists in Parliament, ranking member on the Finance Committee, Dr. Kasiel Atoforsen, urged the Vice President and his government to accept responsibility for their mismanagement of the economy and not seek to blame others.
I heard him yesterday when he tried to blame the current mess that we are in on the banking sector cleanup. But I beg to say that the situation we find ourselves in today can never be attributed to international situation or external situation as well as policies that they inherited. This is a government that has proven to be wasteful, incompetent, and to conclude, useless. I say wasteful in the sense that they inherited so much, a robust tax policy. They inherited ESLA that has given them so far almost 15 billion cedis to deal with the energy sector situations. Unfortunately, they decided to collateralize it for until 2035 and spent the money today. They have collateralized almost everything as if this country do not have generations yet unborn, and squandered all the money on consumption and kebab. I want to ask our Vice President that he should simply take responsibility, because we will not accept the way he is trying to shift blame. He has messed us up, period. He's responsible for the mess that we are in. Simple. And let him accept that he has failed.
The minority claimed that the Vice President has no credibility. They blame the state of the economy on the government's insatiable appetite for borrowing and giving out unbridled tax exemptions.
Of the Vice President, he supervised the economic policy of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. That I call it one program, one loan, 1P, 1L. They believe that every single program they have to go and borrow money. To them, every fiscal program is borrowing and one bond. That is why today Ghana's debt is unsustainable. I want to ask our Vice President that where was he when the economic management team that he supervised or he chairs, they were borrowing as if there was no tomorrow? Where was he when they were sharing the COVID money like Kalewole? Where was he when they were granting tax exemptions like Wole? I want to find out from him, where was he when they were misrepresenting the fiscal data in a manner that became a public and international ridicule?
Let's go live to Parliament and speak with parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante for more. Kweku, what's the minority's justification for accusing the Vice President of trivialism?
Indeed, Aisha, just like you heard there, very strong words there from the minority to Vice President Dr. Bawumia. But the data they've been presenting regarding the cost of borrowing, they've been particularly speaking about how much government has borrowed since it came into office and why they think it is the reason why government has ended here. The government should have listed that as part of the reasons why we are heading to the IMF. They've also been talking about the loan agreements that they've been piling before Parliament. We know that currently there's a $1 billion loan agreement. The minority are still insisting that in the current state and form of that loan agreement, they are not going to approve it. And so they've been particularly singling out borrowing and tax exemptions that have been granted by government to private agencies are some of the things that has led Ghana and a lot of revenue that government could have used for other economic activities. So they are calling on the Vice President and the government to accept responsibility and not shift the blame on the NDC party that left power 6 years ago.
Kweku, what else is happening in Parliament this afternoon?
So, Aisha, it was expected that the Privileges Committee will lay its report on the 3 MPs today. what I'm thinking is that this report cannot be laid today because both sides do not agree on the finality of it. And so they'll be using the weekend and also Monday to try and finalize it before they lay the report before the House. Aisha, we have seen the report, the draft report. The draft report does not say anything about Adwoa Safo losing his seat automatically. We've been finding out from the chairman of the committee, Joseph Osewusu. I just finished interviewing him and we'll be sending the report to our viewers shortly. He's been explaining that his viewpoint is that from the legal perspective, Honorable Sarah Adwoa Safo loses her seat automatically because she failed to appear before the Privileges Committee to explain herself and why she did not appear before the House in 15 days. But the two other MPs, Honorable Kennedy Ejapon and Honorable Enricote, per the draft report that we have seen, and there do not seem to be much disagreement between both sides of the House, have been pardoned. The bone of contention now is Sarah Adwoa Safo. And when the report is laid on Tuesday, as we are picking, there's expected to be a dogfight between the minority and the majority, who are insisting that the Deputy Speaker, who is the chairman of the Privileges Committee, has not used the appropriate rules and regulation to make such referrals and statements that he made exclusively to us, JoyNews.
Kwekwe, did he explain why he went ahead to announce that when he knew indeed it wasn't captured in their report?
Indeed, he says that his viewpoint is what the law says. And what he is saying is that their report is not even subject to debate. Of course, we know that the minority and the speaker himself disagree on that fact. So he said that when he spoke to JoyNews, what he was saying was the viewpoint of the law, and that if an MP, having been referred to the Privileges Committee, fails or refuses to appear, despite the person having been given opportunity to do so, it is automatic. And so he's expecting that when they lay their report before the House next week, the Clerk of Parliament will take a cue and then write to the Electoral Commission to declare the seat vacant. He's putting this on the basis of the Constitution that says that it is automatic, and also the Court of Appeal ruling in the Stephen Kwaku Asare case that referenced that if an MP, having been referred to the Privileges Committee for absenting themselves for 15 consecutive sittings, does not provide a reasonable explanation or fails to provide an explanation, the automaticity kicks in and the seat should be declared vacant. Next week is expected to be a showdown in Parliament, and we are live for it.
Kwekwe Asante is our correspondent in Parliament. Definitely will bring you more from Parliament in our subsequent bulletins. But economist, an associate professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Lord Mensah, says government's decision to overspend during the last election and excessive borrowing should be blamed for the crisis.
I mean that he came to address the country on these economic issues and how we ended up with IMF, for me, is wrong. And apart from the time, I mean, the platform that he used, I mean, he is the economic management team, head of this country. And so if the country has taken a decision to go to IMF, I mean, it should have come earlier. That score, I would say that, I mean, the vice president did not take Ghanaians serious, because this is more or less like an add-on to a program that he went to, and then he had to sneak in, addressing Ghanaians. But this was a serious issue, which should be a critical and outstanding issue that the vice president would devote time to address Ghanaians while we're going to IMF. Now, let's come to the details. You see, you realize that he attributed, our economic woes as we speak now to the happenings with currently with the Ukraine war, the COVID, and then took it back all the way to what was happening in the previous administration. Now, you've taken an economy for the past 6 years. I ask myself, you inherited, before you asked Ghanaians to vote for you, you knew very well that the economy has liabilities.
We're live on JoyNews today on the JoyNews channel. We'll take a break. There's more when we return. And this afternoon, chairman of the new governing New Patriotic Party has taken on critics who are charging the party to postpone its national officers election due to the current economic situation in the country. Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa, Suleiman Ibrahim, had in a tweet suggested that it would be insensitive for the NPP to hold the event amidst the current crisis. But chairman of the party, Freddie Blay, has rejected the suggestion. He says it is ignorant and smacks of impudence. Already, some 6,000 delegates of the party are converging in Accra today ahead of the elections on Saturday. The delegates will elect a new chairman, General Secretary and other officers. Let's take you live to the Accra Sports Stadium for live updates on the arrivals. Blessed Soga is our man there.
There's a need for us to hear from the party to check out what exactly it is that the party has to install ahead of that very crucial exercise. Let's speak to the communications director of the governing New Patriotic Party, lawyer Boabeng Asamoah, who will help us understand the preparations ahead of that exercise. Good afternoon to you, Council. You're live on JoyNews.
Good afternoon, sir.
So, would you say that the party is ready for the exercise come tomorrow?
Absolutely, absolutely. You can see that the place is already coming alive. At the moment, we are not expecting delegates within the presence of the venue, but a lot of them are coming. It's almost like a tourist site. They are coming to see the preparations. On field, everything is ongoing, and behind the scenes, other structures are in place. So we are ready.
Over 6,000 delegates, as we understand, will be participating in this exercise. Would you say that you've put in place the adequate measures to contain any eventualities that may happen? It's not as though we're expecting it, that something bad will happen at the conference, but would you say that you've put in place good structures for the organization of this exercise?
By the grace of God, first we need to transport delegates. That's happening already. A setup, a structure is happening. We need to house them, board and lodging. That is also happening. And tomorrow, we'll need to manage access to the venue. And that's within the jurisdiction of the security services. They are ready and organized. Access will be by accreditation. And anybody who is supposed to have accreditation will have accreditation. Without accreditation, you can't enter the prisons. Once we are in here, as long as you are in here with accreditation, you know your job. Those who are going to vote know that they are here to vote. Those who are going to be voted for know that they are here to be voted for. So everybody will operate and conduct themselves within the area that they came for. So we don't expect anything to go wrong. Absolutely not.
Even before we get into that exercise, we've seen quite a heavy campaign exercise, but almost all of the candidates. You agree? What is accounting for this mad rush, if I could use that word, for the party positions, the executive positions within the NPP this time round?
I think the NPP remains the most attractive political organization in Ghana's political landscape at the moment. You will realize that we have tradition, and our principles, our concepts, our policies are those that favor Ghanaian families. They are those that protect Ghanaian families. So more or less, once it's NPP, people have the feeling that if you want to serve your nation, then you best serve the nation through the NPP by sacrificing to support the NPP and get on board. As we speak,
Blessed Soga speaking with Boabeng Asamoah, Communications Director of the NPP. We have been building up to the big day here on your election headquarters for over 2 weeks now. Today we begin with a raft of new activities to bring you the best experience. Tonight, with a special 2-hour show on the JoyNews channel from 8 to 10 p.m., we will analyze the various candidates and make projections. We'll deploy the best political team on radio, TV, and online, including a crack team of experts from academia and from within the NPP itself as part of our coverage of the elections tomorrow, which begins from 9 a.m. until the final results are declared. Let's take a break on JoyNews today. When we return, there's a very latest coming from the world of business.
Hello, good afternoon. Let's do business now. My name is Beverly Broom. Now, in a bid to promote domestic tourism, Adansi Travels is partnering with SG Bank to introduce a flexible travel package for tourists in Ghana, known as Travel Now, Pay Later. The package will assist patrons to travel on credit basis. Here's more in the following report.
Ghana's tourism sector is expected to be revived through innovation and collaborative efforts from sector players and stakeholders. According to Adansi Travels, partnering with SG Bank is another way of supporting players in the industry to boost the once vibrant tourism sector. Managing Director for Adansi Travels, Gideon Asari, hinted that the package will respond to many challenges of tourists in the country.
With a lot of destinations open up, a lot of people are really eager to get some fresh air by venturing out and going out to new places. And however, we know that the current war in Ukraine has affected fuel prices, including aviation fuel, and that has made the cost of traveling very high. And in our country, Ghana, we are also affected with high exchange rates, and the economy is also not looking good. So travel now has become a little bit more expensive, and so as a travel agency at Adansi Travels, we have been looking for ways to cushion our travelers so that they can weather the storm that we currently find ourselves. And one of the ways that we find it useful is to find a payment plan that will suit our travelers.
General Manager in charge of retail banking at SG Bank, Obed Hoya, explains that the bank is keen on ensuring that the industry receives the necessary support.
So wherever there's a need to assist in getting financing to facilitate whatever activity, that's what we do. So as you said, yes, travel is one of the things that is becoming very prominent in our environment, and we are there to assist clients, our clients and future clients, to be able to facilitate these trips.
The Travel Now, Pay Later offer also has a package for government employees.
Now, as part of engagements with the general public on the state of the economy and the way forward as a country, Joy Business on Monday, July 18, 2022, will hold a maiden edition of the town hall meeting at the University of Ghana Business School. This will afford the students the opportunity to discuss current happenings in the country. Here's the Dean of the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Justice Baoli.
This program is supposed to give a platform to our students to engage on national issues. You know, our school is a business school. We train students in various disciplines, and we want them to be abreast with the events that are happening in the country. Not just that, but that they should have a say in the things that happen. And we think that this event is going to offer our students a platform to share views on what they think is happening to us as an economy, but also most importantly to get the students share views and perspectives on how they think we should be moving forward as a nation. I am sure that students would have interest in all manner of things, including some macroeconomic indicators. I'm sure students will be interested in our debt burden. I'm sure students will be interested in the issues of inflation. I'm sure students will be interested also in the things of unemployment and economy generally. So I expect that the students would come forth and speak up and put forward their positions as far as the economy is concerned. My expectation again is that students would, after this event, begin to appreciate, because this will discuss, and the students would appreciate the conversations and perhaps pick up these conversations on their platforms, in their lecture rooms with their lecturers, and to engage with the Business House JCR events and other programs. Ultimately, I think the political managers should probably tune in and listen to the views of young students who have a thing or two to say to them. Who knows? Maybe salvation may just come from the students.
Now talking about these students,
I know you engage them in so many ways. What had been some of the feedback with respect to the indicators out there, how the economy is faring and all that? What have been some of the feedbacks from some of these students?
Well, I mean, our students are very active students. In my class, for example, when we engage students on the state of the economy, and we usually will talk about various aspects. One of the things that I teach is on ethics, and in the ethics class, we usually will look at major considerations. For example, the level of corruption in Ghana. We would usually talk about the Auditor General's report, other forms of leakages, for example, things like exemptions that cost the country a lot of money. So you would see that students are really passionate about these, and so our students are alive to the discourse in the country, and they have a thing or two to say. And so I expect that the way they are active in class and the contributions they make in class will be brought to bear on the discussions of the day.
And that's how we end business now. We have more details on our Joy Business Town Hall meeting on myjoyonline.com/business, and also in our subsequent bulletins. Have a good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Showbiz here on Joy News today. Now, Africa is known for having a unique culture, for being a place where knowledge has been passed on down orally for many years. A son of the motherland who is making use of his unique heritage is singer Okaija Afroso. In an interview with Joy News at his 6th studio album Listening, Okaija hopes his music will help protect Africa's identity and turn away the next generations from excessive Western influence. In addition to being a nourishment for the soul, music gives its creators a sense of identity. Meet Okaija Afroso, a Ghanaian singer living in the United States who is trying to attract audiences to his style of music. He calls it the ancestral spirit music. In an exclusive interview with Joy News, Okaija believes his genre, which is dominated by the Gan language and sounds from live played instruments, will reaffirm the appeal for Africans to take pride in their own culture despite the craze for Afrobeats.
Everything that in my culture, I feel like is fading out. You listen to this album, you're going to hear words that makes you feel proud, makes you feel like you want to do the same. You really go back and reach for old traditions.
Agbala, Agash, and Gidi Gidi are some of the 12 songs on his 6th album titled Jaku Mumo. Explains the inspiration behind the album.
The album is called Jaku Mumo, which means ancestral spirit. It's an album about my culture, the culture of the Gadangme people. So I wanted to do something that is really heavy in poetry, literature, history, everything.
Though it is Okaija's first performance in Ghana, he says he has intentions to work with several Ghanaian artists. On that note, if you're looking for an album that will instill an Africanist sentiment in you, Jaku Mumo should be a choice. Efwa Aprekua Boafo's report read to you. Well, we've ended the show. It's a Friday. Tomorrow is actually a busy day for mainstream news. So I'll be sleeping.
Good for you, Becky. That will be it for Showbiz. Thank you for bringing us Showbiz. And that's how we wrap up news today. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Log on to myjoyonline.com. You get more of the news and also updates of all the developing stories. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.